While waiting for parts on the other bikes, I decided to put the Enfield engine back together again. So we start off here with me cleaning up the crankcases, removing the old gasket material and washing them down with carb cleaner. I often enjoy the debate about whether you should use sealant, silicone sealer on gaskets or not. The argument is if you get the crankcases clean enough that you shouldn't need the sealer, and for this I totally agree, but at the end of it I always put a little bit on just in case. What harm can it do? With the gasket material all removed, I took the parts outside and gave them a thorough washing in paraffin. I only have a little parts washer, so I use a garden sprayer to pump the paraffin in at a bit of pressure and a brush, just to wash away all the loose crap and blow it out with an airline later. Back on the bench with the parts cleaned, I load up the bearings and the crank with oil, just for ease of assembly and ease of running in once it starts running. The only thing contained in the main crankcases is the crank itself, so just wiggle it into place. Now place the main gasket on the crankcase half, and here again I've added a little bit of silicone sealer. It just helps to hold the gasket in place while you put the two halves together. I also load up the bearing with oil. And place the other crankcase half on top. Then with a gentle tap the two cases are closed together. Then let's put the studs in place and pinch the two cases together. Not all the studs have to go in, just this sufficient amount to make the gasket pinch. This bridging piece helps hold the gasket in place but needs to be cut out afterwards, so I use a hacksaw with the tip of it sharpened, just like an extended blade to remove the excess. All the way through the build I tend to give it a wipe down every now and then, just to keep on top of keeping things clean. The timing pinion was put on the end of the crankshaft. It's not a good idea to put the nut that drives the oil pump on just yet, as it covers up the timing marks. It's easier to just leave the nut off for now and use the markings on the camshafts in plain view to set the timing. It's a simple case of just lining up the dots, 2 dots to 2 dots, and then across to the other camshaft, 1 dot to 1 dot. The pinions driving the distributor have no markings on them, as it doesn't have to be set to any particular position. They literally just transmit the drive up to the distributor, and the timing is done on a taper on the end of the distributor shaft. A new gasket was fitted to the base of the distributor and it was put into position. 3 screws hold it in place. These screws have quite a coarse thread on them, so to ask the screwdriver to tighten them up properly is a bit demanding. So I tighten them up with the screwdriver and then give them a gentle tap, not over tightening but just pinching them up with an impact driver. With the distributor tightened in place, we can now put on the drive pinion. This particular engine has electronic ignition, so first of all you set the distributor with the pointer and the magnet, or the pickup and the magnet, in alignment with the engine at top dead center. Again, the timing marks come in handy here. With everything lined up, it's a simple case then to tighten up the pinion. And now the oil pump drive nut can be put into place and tightened up. The timing cover is then replaced with a new gasket, but this time I didn't use any silicone sealer, as this might have to come off later if the distributor needs adjustment. With new screws and all the threads repaired, the timing cover goes on quite nicely. Pinching it down level and then giving it a little tap just to twist the oil pump home on the worm. With the timing cover in place, the oil quill was screwed in. Every time I seem to do one of these engines, they have a new way of making it oil tight. So we'll try this method and I'll let you know in the future if it works better than any of the others or if there's any difference at all. On the drive side, the collar that goes behind the rotor was put into place and given a gentle tap to seat it properly against the bearing. The Cylinder base gasket was then put in place, again with a bit of sealer on it. With the bottom end completed now, it's time to move up the engine. The piston was warmed up so that the gudgeon pin would move through its bosses with a bit more ease. With the gudgeon pin located in the eye of the connecting rod, it was pushed in. It only went so far. It's a very cold day and probably cooled down a bit, but a gentle tap with a mallet and it soon moved into position. New circlips, of course, fitted to the piston. The barrel was then put on top of the piston using the chamfer at the base of the barrel to carefully compress the piston rings to the point where the barrel slipped down over the piston. Just have to be careful that the rings aren't jamming or sticking out in any particular area, and gradually wiggle the barrel so that the chamfer compresses the rings and it slips over. With the barrel at the bottom and the piston in place, a final tap just to make sure everything was seated properly. Again, remember not to hit it on the fins, you're actually striking on the top gasket face. That way it can take the load without cracking the fins. At this point the tape ran out and I didn't notice. But all that was missing is the head gasket was put into place. It's a composite gasket, so it didn't need annealing. The head was pushed on and the 4 studs were screwed down, not forgetting the 4 little copper washers underneath the studs. Thanks for watching.